Welcome to Elektor Engineering Insights, the show that puts your engineering challenges to the industry's experts. I'm your host, Stuart Cording, the electronics reporter. Now, before ChatGPT stole the news cycle, there was plenty of hype around progress in quantum computing. These machines leverage the mysteries of quantum mechanics to perform calculations that simply are not possible on classic computers. However, while they could create new pharmaceuticals and materials, they may also be capable of breaking the cryptographic algorithms that protect our communication and data. So, how close are we to this point? What's being done about it? And what can we do to prepare? To find out more, my expert for this episode is Joppe Bos from NXP. So, welcome Joppe. Thanks for joining us on Engineering Insights. Good to see you.
Thanks, Stuart. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, what it is that you do at NXP and where you're based.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Joppe Bos. I'm based in Leuven in Belgium. And so I'm part of the CTO organization of NXP, meaning the central organization in the large group competence center, crypto and security. So we provide services and we build crypto libraries, software, hardware IPs for our business. And I am leading the post-quantum cryptography group within NXP.
Fantastic. Well, stay on the line there for a second, because I'm just going to drop off for a moment to tackle some other points in our show, and we'll be back with our questions shortly. See you soon.
Thanks.
Yes, so now I've lost where I'm supposed to be clicking. There we go. It is very difficult when you're sitting there on your own trying to pull in all the pieces. But anyway, we can move on now and inform you that this episode is sponsored by WinSource. Founded in 1999, they are the largest online electronic component store in Asia. They offer a wide range of obsolete and commonly used electronic parts. It has for decades been recognised by third-party certifications and was bestowed with the top Asia-Pacific Distributors 2022 award by Source Today. Via WinSource, you can source over 1 million electronic components online, reducing your costs, taking advantage of some same-day shipment and their 365-day warranty. To learn more, visit the win-source.net website online store after the show. Now, I've been looking very much forward to this particular show because I've been looking at some of the risks associated with quantum computing and cybersecurity for a while, and I want to hear what Joppe can share with us today. However, this show is for you engineers out there struggling with your designs. So regardless of where you're watching, post your questions and comments during the show using the chat function on YouTube and LinkedIn, or if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag ElektorEI, and we'll do our best to get answers or guide you to some resources that might help. So with all of that behind us, let's bring Joppe back into the show. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So what I wanted to start with was, as I mentioned in the introduction there, quantum computing was actually in the sort of media quite a lot before ChatGPT and artificial intelligence discussion sort of took over the news cycle of the last few months. So what is it that's going on in quantum computing and in these quantum computing machines that puts our existing security algorithms and cryptography as we know it today at risk?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So of course, I'm definitely not the best person to talk about quantum computing. I'm not a physicist. So my main focus is on one of the implications from these quantum computers. Quantum computers, of course, are known from the 90s that certain algorithms, they can run much faster compared to classical computers. One of these algorithms being Shor's algorithm, an algorithm which can solve certain mathematical problems much faster compared to the classical machines we're using nowadays. And it turns out that exactly these mathematical problems form the foundation of our widely used public key cryptography, which you're probably using now if you watch this live stream. And that, of course, fueled a lot of interest in quantum algorithms, in quantum computers. And since there were lots of developments, quantum computers got bigger and bigger, meaning they could compute on more qubits, quantum bits. A couple of years ago, there was this interest in developing a new public key cryptographic standard where these designs could withstand or are believed to withstand attacks from quantum computers. And that, of course, since last year, NIST, so US government, announced the winners of this competition, that was really the hype all over the place, of course. We see from our customers a lot of interest in these new public key crypto PQC algorithms.
So if we look at today's security, if I was describing it to someone, I'd say it sort of approximately can be broken down into three parts. We have the cryptography algorithms themselves, and then we sort of have hardware and software that implements those algorithms and does all the calculations. And then we've got sort of protocols in place which allow different machines to establish a secure communication in the form of like authentication, data encryption, and secure communication. So does quantum computing pose a risk for all of these elements, or is it just the mathematical algorithms that they use to encrypt data?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So I think the quantum computers, as far as we know nowadays, like I said, they can solve some of these problems, mathematical problems, much quicker, much better compared to classical computers. And really the main risk are from these cryptographic foundations, these foundational schemes we use, for instance, key exchange or digital signatures. And so really the main threat is there. But then, of course, this ripples through the entire ecosystem. So if you're using a protocol like TLS when you browse the internet, if you can break the core security foundations there, it means that all the protocols built on top of this are at risk as well. So in the end, it's not only the foundational technologies, the cryptography, but also the security and the security protocols built on top of this who are at risk.
Now, when we follow the media, there's lots of discussions on a regular basis on hacking massive amounts of data. I think I even saw one on Twitter this morning that I think it was a government organisation in the UK had been hacked. Massive quantities of data and then sort of stolen and then later shared on the internet. Does this mean to sort of like the layperson that today's algorithms are already being broken by criminals in order to mount such attacks? Or is it mostly just poor implementation of security at these organizations and the use of sort of tools like social engineering?
Yeah, currently I think most, if not all of the attacks which hit the news where data is being leaked or data is being stolen, that is all with, bad system security. So that has nothing to do with the crypto being used. But of course, the impact if these cryptographic primitives are being broken is much bigger, of course, because then it more or less means, in case for public key crypto, if your cryptographic schemes, if RSA, widely used standard, or ECC, elliptic curve cryptography, the other widely used public key crypto scheme, if these get broken, and we know that there are these quantum algorithms, which if we had a large enough quantum computer, then these schemes are broken. This would have really wide-ranging impact on our entire society. So the whole economy would more or less collapse because banking applications, all our cybersecurity, everything is at risk. But the attacks we see nowadays in the news have nothing to do yet with quantum computers, because quantum computers are currently not, as far as we know, capable of breaking the public key crypto which we're using nowadays.
Now, if we go and look up encryption and sort of cybersecurity as general topics, I think there's two key types of encryption methods that or approaches that you'll see often described. There's AES, which is the Advanced Encryption Standard, and there's ECC, Elliptic Curve Cryptography. Now, if could you sort of explain a little bit what is it that makes those two particular algorithms secure in the first place? What is it about quantum computers that's going to sort of put the algorithms behind those technologies, as it were, those algorithms at risk?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So in cryptography, we more or less, have three different types of building blocks you can use. So one is symmetric key cryptography. So both parties have the same key and then can encrypt and decrypt information. And AES, the Advanced Encryption Standard, is an example of these type of algorithms. Then you have hash functions. You can more or less use that to fingerprint data. So the old MD5, but SHA-1, SHA-2, and the more recent SHA-3 standards is an example of that. And then you have public key cryptography. So there are two types of keys, a public key and a private key. And use cases are related to key exchange. So for instance, in TLS, you would use this to exchange, you use public key cryptography to exchange a symmetric key, and which is then subsequently used for encryption and decryption, or you use it for digital signatures. So you can sign something and then later you can verify the signature on a piece of software to see if it checks out. And for public key cryptography, we have RSA, named after the three inventors, or ECC, elliptic curve cryptography, which is now used, as you mentioned, everywhere. A much more recent example, of course, is in Bitcoin, which heavily relies on public key crypto with the help of ECC as well. So why are we even talking about these things? Because in public key crypto, that is how these things are designed. They're built upon a hard problem, or a problem which is believed to be hard and comes from mathematics. So for RSA, it's integer factorization. So I give you a large integer, and the problem is find me two prime numbers. When you multiply them together, they result in this large integer. And for elliptic curve crypto systems is another type of problem, a related problem, which is known as the discrete log problem. And Shor's algorithm is a quantum algorithm which actually shows that when you assume that an attacker has access to a quantum computer, can break these mathematical problems much faster in polynomial time, which really means in practice that if you have a sufficiently large quantum computer, this is just a matter of minutes before you can extract the secret key used. So RSA and ECC would really become obsolete when you face an adversary which has access to a quantum computer. When you look at AES, the situation, so symmetric key crypto in general, is slightly different. So AES is not built upon such a mathematical problem. So there's no mathematical problem to break. You more or less, so it's a construction for which we do not know how to break it any faster than by trying every key and then hoping you have the right key. And now there's a quantum algorithm due to Grover, which allows you to do this searching for the keys much more efficiently. But the impact is significant, but much less significant compared to public key crypto. So if you want to go for 128-bit security, which is typically what we aim for in practice, so if you use AES now, AES 128, you get 128 bits of security. You would have to double your key length and migrate to AES 256 in order to get the same level of security when facing a quantum attacker.
So, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of unknowns, but obviously it's considered to be a big enough risk that it's been decided generally by the community to tackle this now rather than wait a bit longer, like we've done with some of the artificial intelligence technologies, and try and put the genie back in the box once it's been released. So the way I understand it, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, which is an American organization, they seem to be driving the development of security algorithms and standardization. So is this effort to find quantum secure algorithms just an American initiative, or are other countries and nations involved in that process?
Yeah, so there's often a lot of, also when we talk to our customers, a lot of confusion around this, because you might think indeed that this is an American standard. And although the US government is more or less guiding and organizing the standardization effort, it really is not. In crypto and security, it is pretty common that one organization, so US government, is organizing the standardization track, but then everybody in the world can submit proposals. And then, according to some guidelines, everybody, of course, can try to break, assess these proposals, and then hopefully the best winner is being picked at the end. So this has been done previously. If we look for symmetric key crypto, AES, as you mentioned before, there was a standardization effort by US government, and they picked the winner in 2001. So AES actually was a submission from Belgium called Rijndael. And so Belgium contender won that competition and became the AES. So there the American standard is actually a Belgium scheme. We have the same for hash functions. So to find the new hash function standard, SHA-3, there was a large competition, and in 2015, the winner was selected. It was one of the submissions called Ketchuk, and that one was selected by US government and is now the de facto worldwide standard. The same happened now for post-quantum crypto, where they ran this competition. They now selected the winners in the summer of last year, and next year in 2024 they will release the standards. For post-quantum crypto, everything is a bit more complicated. There's not one winner like with AES or with SHA-3, because there are these various use cases. So they looked into winners for key exchange and for digital signatures. So that's already two categories. And yeah, to make everything even more complicated, they selected more winners. So they selected multiple schemes, which will get standardized. But yeah, they have these two preferred winners, which they will standardize first, and which now industry knows where we can actually migrate to.
So when this competition, as you said before, the NIST has been involved and done this type of competition before in order to find an algorithm from the worldwide community. How does the competition get announced? How does it work? What are the sort of steps to get through it? And who is it that's trying to figure out which algorithms can be broken and which can't be broken? And how does sort of like NXP get involved and join in with this proposal, with this process?
Yeah, so I think lots of people from industry and academia have been involved in these activities, and I think that really shows as well that if you want to come to one of these state-of-the-art schemes, you need to work together. You need to have the experts from academia. They do all the security proofs and really try to prove that things are secure or have reductions to hard problems. And then, of course, on the other hand, you need industry to really show that things can actually run in practice, that it can be easily integrated in the many use cases out there. So use cases like browsing the internet, but of course, where we were focusing on use cases on embedded devices. So think smart cards, think small industrial IoT devices, but also think automotive, of course. And that's why it doesn't happen that often that new standardizations are underway, because of course it's the number one rule in crypto is don't roll your own crypto. So don't try to invent something yourself, with the exception, of course, if standardization bodies explicitly ask for this. So when this call came up, we were involved actually in multiple schemes, NXP with lots in a large consortium with many partners. We thought, and at that time, lattice-based crypto, so a new area in cryptography, was extremely popular, and a lot of development in the decades before had been done in this area, where many people in NXP were part of that movement. So it was actually a perfect timing, and that is how NXP decided to also be part and submit some of these schemes to the NIST standardization effort. And of course, we were really glad that in the end, one of our submissions, CRYSTALS-KYBER, got actually selected and is now the de facto standard for key exchange.
That's great. It's exciting must be exciting to sort of be involved in a project like that, and then actually sort of make it through to those the final group. So you mentioned before that there's some algorithms already selected as part of this process. What quantum secure algorithms have been approved at this point, and was it just the one that was supported by NXP, or were there others as well? Are you able to hear me, Joppe? I think I've lost you for a moment. Can you hear me at all at the minute, Joppe? No. Hang on a second. Just see if we can get the sound working again here at the moment.
You're back for me.
Oh, good, super. Yeah, I think it was just a break in the connection there for a second. For some reason, we lost you. Yeah, so yeah, you mentioned that some algorithms have already been selected through this NIST competition, through this process. Which of how many are there? What's the difference sort of between them? What's the basis of them? And was it just the one that was supported by NXP, or were you also involved in any of the others?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So when you start looking at public key crypto, yeah, you first need to find a new area, mathematical area, with problems which you can use as your security foundation, like we had with RSA and ECC. But now, of course, we needed to look for something else, for which we either do not know how a quantum computer can break this, or yeah, there's a proof that it is really hard in general, also for quantum computers, to try and break this cryptography. And one of these areas is lattice-based crypto. So that is an area which got a lot of traction in the last years, and NXP was heavily involved there. So there was a scheme, or there is a scheme called FrodoChem, where NXP was involved, and Kyber. And FrodoChem made it to the last round and then was dropped by US government. But we see now still a lot of traction from European governments for Frodo. And then there is Kyber, which was selected as the preferred key exchange winner by US government. So what is the difference between these various lattice-based submissions? It's really, yeah, more from a mathematical point of view. You work with different objects, and you more or less compared, for instance, from Frodo to Kyber, you use more structure in order to make the scheme smaller and faster in practice. And of course, having smaller and faster schemes is super nice, and that is of course why Kyber won. But there might also be a concern that some people say, look, this structure might also allow you to actually attack these schemes better in practice. So we don't know of any of these attacks, but that is why some of the European governments are really pushing more for Frodo. Even though it's bigger, it's much more conservative in its choices, and that's why they have more trust in the security of these schemes. Then lattice-based crypto is only one of the areas where people are looking into. So there's another area called code-based crypto, which is a very promising area. So classic McAleese is one of the schemes there, which I think is very promising. It's a very old scheme, yeah, from the 1970s. It has some drawbacks in terms of size, but that is also one of the schemes where NXP later became involved. And so that is often how it happens. PhD students and postdocs during their studies are involved in these schemes, and then they get hired by the various companies. And that is, of course, how they then yeah, raise more awareness and interest within these companies as well about these post-quantum crypto developments.
Right, super. Good. Well, what we're going to do is take a quick break from the discussion at the minute to introduce our giveaway and competition. So stay with us, and I'll come back to you very shortly. So we actually have a competition prize, and I'm just going to pull that up so as you can all see it. That's right. So giveaway time. Firstly, congratulations to our previous winners. That's Theo, Adrian and Wojciech. They won the 3 Raspberry Pi Pico Ws, and they should be with you already by now. So thank you very much for taking part and joining us. And to extend our thanks to you as loyal Engineering Insights viewers, this episode I have 3 ESP32C3 development kits up for grabs. It integrates a 32-bit RISC-V core. The processor offers also Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 5, which makes it ideal for IoT applications and building mesh networks. With RSA, secure boot and AES flash encryption, your secrets should remain, well, secret as you interface with other devices and the cloud. For your chance to win, simply visit the link shown below and enter your keyword trusted, that's the keyword trusted, with your entry. So we wish you all the luck with the giveaway. So let's get back to Joppe and dig a little bit deeper into the world of quantum computing and the algorithms that have been designed for a post-quantum world. So, welcome back. So one of the things I wanted to also get a better handle of is where we are today with quantum computing. We've seen some of the news. There's, I think, sort of hundreds, 100 bits or more in an IBM machine, for example, and Google is doing a lot of work. What are the quantum computers that are out there actually capable of doing them, and who's building and investing their time in developing them?
Yeah, so you already mentioned a couple of the key players there. So a lot of the developments in the last years, there was more or less this race towards quantum supremacy. So quantum supremacy was this achievement that you could compute a function on a quantum computer which is deemed infeasible or impractical on any classical computer. Because that would already indicate, of course, that quantum computers can have really advanced to a stage that they are able to do this. And so this was announced first by a research team from Google, by the AI quantum group there in 2019. So this was not without dispute. IBM disputed this claim. Of course, they said this was a very impressive achievement, but they could already compute this, or they compute this function as well on their classical computers. I think, when and how we exactly achieve quantum supremacy, that is a bit irrelevant. I think the thing to notice is that there are really significant steps being made forward with quantum computers, with the total number of qubits you can actually compute on. So as far as I'm aware, the most recent announcements, or the largest quantum computer announced is by IBM from the end of last year, end of 2022, where they indeed have a 433 qubit processor. So that already by itself is pretty impressive, and it follows the roadmap IBM set out to achieve. And if they keep doing that, we will really see bigger and bigger quantum computers, and then we fully expect at some point, of course, that we cross a certain threshold where we will probably see an exponential growth in qubits for these quantum computers.
And the quantum computers that we have available to us today, obviously, I've read some of the stories on the internet, some of the news information that they're being used to tackle some sort of challenges, such as looking at pharmaceuticals, developing new types of materials, calculating pathways, for example, to optimize journey time, and things like this. But have any efforts been made to try and undertake some of the breaking of cryptographic algorithms, or is the work that's been done thus far just all theoretical?
So yeah, when you look at pure crypto applications, it's definitely all pure theoretical. But so Shor's algorithm was really the catalyst for a lot of research and funding going into quantum computers and building these devices. So it is a very logical choice, of course, that even if you have a small quantum computer or a small quantum processor, you try and run Shor's algorithm to see if you can factor an integer, like the hard problem which we have in RSA. So there are different approaches you can use here. You can purely have a quantum-based approach, or you can try and have some sort of a hybrid solution where you run part of your computation on a quantum computer and part of your computation on a classical computer. And that is what people have been investigating as well, because then you can try and reduce the number of qubits you need in your computation. And I think I just looked it up because I do not follow that news very closely. But in end of last year, in December, a Chinese research team announced that they could factor a 48-bit integer using such a hybrid approach, quantum processor working together with a classical computer. So that, of course, is very far away from what you need if you want to break a real cryptographic implementation. Factoring a 48-bit integer takes really less than a second on anybody's laptop or mobile device. So in that sense, it's not a massive achievement in terms of factorization, but it really shows that these quantum or these hybrid approaches are capable of more and more feats in practice.
And have we explored at all how many bits a quantum computer would need to have to break some of today's cryptography?
There we are again.
Sorry, yeah, there we go. I was going to say, question was whether have we got an idea of how many bits a quantum computer would need to have a chance of breaking today's cryptography?
Yeah, so that is an active research area, of course. How many qubits are needed, and then of course, so the number of qubits is a very simple measurement because they need to be stable for a certain amount of time, long enough that you can run your computation. You need to have quantum gates, but yeah, we're talking, instead of dozens, we're talking about thousands or tens of thousands of qubits, which you need depending if you use RSA or ECC, what you actually want to break.
So hopefully we've got a little bit of time, but as you said before, this there's that risk that once they've got the stability issues under control, that there's that exponential growth, isn't there? So naturally that's going to be the risk that comes in the coming years. So you said at the beginning when we were talking that the big concern is these algorithms, for example, are based upon multiplication of two prime numbers, and it's very difficult to figure out what those two prime numbers would have been using a classical computer. People have been trying to break AES for many years with classic computing processes. Hasn't been achieved thus far. So what that means that the mathematics we have today isn't going to be isn't good enough for quantum computing. But what sort of math is quantum computing not very good at that allows us to then be sure that these new algorithms are actually quantum secure?
Yeah, so it's not really that we look at what are quantum computers good at, because there might be very unknown quantum algorithms which can do things we do not even know nowadays. So for the standardization effort, people looked at problems for which we do not know, or for which we have proofs that at least it's very hard for quantum computers to solve these types of problems as well. So as nowadays, as grad students, when you go to university and you do computer science, you have to learn RSA and ECC. Soon that will more move to historical crypto classes, and we will now need to learn about this lattice-based crypto, and we need to learn about something called learning with errors, because learning with errors is the new paradigm behind these new secure, post-quantum secure algorithms which are being standardized, and that are new types of problems, and they come from an area in mathematics called they use lattices, so lattice-based crypto.
So those lattices, that's part of this CRYSTALS term. So CRYSTALS is cryptographic suite for algebraic lattices. And if we look at what NIST has chosen, two of the algorithms start with CRYSTALS. We've got CRYSTALS-KYBER is one of them, which is the one that you've been working on, and there's CRYSTALS something else which I've forgot the name of at the minute. But so what is it about this CRYSTALS problem that makes it such a great? There's dilithium was the other one. What makes it such a strong candidate for these algorithms?
Yeah, so the CRYSTALS team, indeed, so that's a large team, and then there's a large overlap between the team of Kyber and dilithium. They worked on making really the whole theory of lattice-based crypto, making that concrete and instantiate that to practice. So there were two submissions based on this CRYSTALS framework. called Kyber and Dilithium. And from the names, you can already tell that lots of people in the crypto community are science fiction Star Wars fans, because Kyber and Dilithium are crystals. You can see from some of the other names, Frodo Cam, that there are also fantasy lovers in the crypto community. But that being aside, so that whole framework is really efficient in practice. And of course, in practice, it has a lot of advantages if two different standards, Kyber and Dilithium, share a common framework that will make your life in practice much, much easier when you need to implement this on your devices. And that is played, I guess, an important role as well for US government to select these two schemes as their preferred winners.
Now, we've got CRYSTALS-KYBER and CRYSTALS-Dilithium that have been selected. So what's the difference between those two particular algorithms, and which one of the security problems are they going to be applied to? Is that for the for public key or digital signatures? Where do they fall?
Yeah, so they were selected. So they, like I said, more or less based on the same framework, but then really used for two different applications. So that is really the difference. So Kyber is used for key exchange or for key encapsulation, it's now officially called. But you can just look at it how we used Diffie-Hellman now in many protocols for key exchange. So that is exactly the use case where we should migrate to and then use Kyber. Dilithium is the algorithm for digital signatures. So for instance, when you do a secure boot or you do a secure update on your phone, or you get an update in your car, you need to verify the signature to ensure that nobody modified the update coming in. And that is exactly where you would use a digital signature algorithm. And then you would swap out, for instance, EasyDSA, so the current standard for signatures, and then use Dilithium instead.
And so where are we now? These algorithms have been officially selected. If you go to the NIST website, you can find them all listed in a table there, and which algorithm applies to which use case. Are we able to then just take these algorithms and drop them in and replace what's behind what we're using today, or does some more work need to be done?
No, so there I think things get really nasty and complicated. And that is, I mean, why lots of people get quite nervous and why lots of governments are issuing out migration documents and assistance, because here it gets complicated. So there are not only, like we saw before with AES, they picked one winner and that became AES. For hash functions, they selected one winner and that became SHA-3. So it was easy, you knew what to migrate to. And everything looked pretty much the same. AES looked very similar to Triple DES, which was there before. SHA-3 looked very similar on the API, so how you would call the functions, to the previous SHA-2 and SHA-1. Now everything will be very different. So first of all, for key exchange, for digital signatures, there's not only one winner. So there are, for digital signatures, multiple winners have been selected, but one preferred one, Dilithium. But for instance, there are other winners like Falcon and Sphinx Plus. They will get standardized as well. Maybe a little bit later, and this will focus on Kyber and Dilithium first. The timeline is that this summer, first drafts will go out. 24, the real standard is out, so there is no standard yet. But then later, they will standardize these others as well. To complicate things even further, some of the schemes move to a round 4, so another round of investigation. Especially schemes which did not come from this realm of lattice-based crypto, because they wanted to diversify their portfolio. So it's very likely that one or two of these schemes get selected and then added to the portfolio of post-quantum crypto. And then to make things even more complicated, NIST decided to launch another standardization track. It will actually launch June 1st this year, where they look at post-quantum secure signatures again, but for small signatures. And there they specifically asked for schemes which are not based on lattices, because they want to diversify their portfolio for the digital signatures. And of course, looking at small signatures, where small can refer to key size, memory consumption, and signature size, of course, that for us is, as NXP, as an embedded semiconductor provider, is very interesting, of course. So we're keeping an eye on that, but that is really much more in the future. The short term is really Kyber and Dilithium, and that is what we're focusing on.
And if I remember correctly, isn't Sphinx also on a different type of mathematical, based on different mathematical problem, and that was also selected to provide some diversification, or was it Falcon?
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right. So Sphinx Plus. So there maybe a little bit of history is needed as well to explain things correctly. So there were two approaches from that family. It's called, they're based on hash functions. So just hash functions as we know it nowadays. SHA-3 is, for instance, a hash function. But there was an approach known how you can use the security of hash functions and turn that into a public key crypto scheme. Then you don't need to call the hash function once, as we used it now, but you need to call it thousands and thousands of times. So it's much, much slower, but then you can build public key crypto out of it. And two of these schemes were known already for quite some years. They're called LMS and XMSS, and they were already standardized in 2021. The big problem with these schemes is that they are stateful, meaning that every time you create a signature, you need to maintain a state. And if you somehow do not synchronize the state correctly, you would lose all the security of your signature scheme, which is not very convenient in practice. So this is not, you cannot use this for all use cases. So Sphinx Plus was a submission to this NIST standardization effort and was now indeed selected for standardization. And there it removed the state of these hash-based families, but at a price that it even became slower and bigger compared to LMS and XMSS. So these schemes indeed diversify, but for embedded applications, it will be very, very tough to make them practical.
Now, when we look back at how sort of all these encryption standards came about, if you sort of read the history and the creation of DES and this idea that you could even have a public key to start with, the world looked a lot different. I think one of the key challenges that was being tackled at that point was making secure transactions in banking and also secure communications for governments to consulates and embassies and things around the world and other organizations that wanted some sort of secure communication. Today, of course, though, we now have very small processors, microcontrollers in IoT applications and industrial IoT applications. And obviously we want end-to-end security in those sort of things as well, over very low speed, data rate, wireless systems. So during this process, has NIST considered how efficiently and how quickly the algorithms can be executed by, say, a small microcontroller with limited RAM and limited flash?
Yes, so I think that is, of course, one of the key ingredients. So I think the number one ingredient when you look for a new crypto standard is that it should be secure. So I think that is of course, if it's not secure, you cannot use it. So that is the most prominent requirement. But right after that, of course, it's performance. Because lots of companies, or I would say most usage of crypto in the world, of course, is not on embedded devices. I mean, people don't realize, but a lot of crypto and security is on embedded devices, on your mobile phones, on smart cards, but a lot of it's browsing the internet with your laptops, for instance. And their performance is key, but memory consumption is much less important. But for, of course, where we try to steer the whole discussion is to also take this point of view into account. For many smart cards, they don't have megabytes of memory available.
Yeah.
So it's very important that they can actually run on these smaller devices. But we now see with post-quantum crypto that is very difficult, because we were used to RSA, and then we all realized, oh, these keys are really large. They were around 512 bytes. So we moved to ECC, where we only had 32 bytes of keys. But we were really spoiled, because now we will go to post-quantum crypto. And if you look at the lithium, for instance, now we're really talking about keys which are 4 kilobytes and signature sizes of the same order of magnitude. So we will get orders of magnitude larger than RSA even. So I think this will be a massive challenge in the migration for embedded devices. Its performance is one thing, but these schemes were selected. Their performance is actually quite okay. And of course, as a semiconductor company, for embedded devices, we can cheat. We can always add hardware accelerators to make things faster. But yeah, it needs to fit on the device. So for many of the existing devices, it will be a challenge with the existing amount of memory on there. So I think memory, that will be a big decisive factor if you can run post-quantum crypto or not.
So are we, you mentioned that the standardization process is going on, and there's some new elements that NIST have taken on as well, and asked for sort of requests for new ideas for. When do you think that we're going to see these new algorithms being used on any platform, even if it's just as a sort of demonstration or within a web browser, for example?
Yeah, so we already saw, I think Google experimented with Chrome, with experimental versions where you could use post-quantum crypto. You see other companies who will start integrating now, but I think industry at large will really migrate only after the standard is released, because then you can simply comply with that standard, because it's not uncommon that small things get tweaked from the schemes which are selected now. And if you then now release products, you get all kinds of compatibility issues if you need to upgrade things later in the field. So I think people can really see after somewhere in 2024, when NIST will release the standard, then you can comply with the standard. And then, for instance, NXP is starting to release their first products immediately because we have everything ready, of course, in-house. We have demonstrators and proof of concepts where we show that our platforms support this. For instance, recently we showed that for automotive, we have secure boot already available using the lithium, using post-quantum crypto. So showing that that is possible, our platforms can do it, but it's not in a product yet because the standard is not there. And then after we release it to our customers, there are of course OEMs integrating this into industrial IoT, into automotive. Then a little while later, this will trickle down the whole chain, and then it will end up in products which consumers can use.
And what sort of advice are you giving to people, to customers, or even maybe sort of family members who want to sort of make sure that their security is going to always be up to the highest standard possible? What sort of advice are you giving to people in this phase where we're sort of waiting for standardization, and so that they can be prepared for this move to post-quantum cryptography?
Yeah, I think there are two answers. So one for, of course, consumers, people who just use crypto and security on a regular basis. For them, the advice, hopefully, that's the end goal, is you don't have to do anything. Everything behind the scenes will be taken care of by your tech companies, by your semiconductor companies, and hopefully in an update, your crypto, which you probably are not aware you're running, will be swapped to post-quantum cryptography, and everything will remain working as expected. Of course, for companies integrating security solutions, it's different. There you need to prepare. You can already now start your migration for the symmetric key part. Migrate from AES 128 to AES 256, for instance. You can already perfectly well enable this, and that will help your migration, of course, to post-quantum crypto. For products in the field, you need to ensure, like I said, that there is sufficient memory to run post-quantum crypto. And if you want to enable products, platforms to run post-quantum crypto in the future, ensure that you have an update protocol which is post-quantum secure now. Because if you now ship products which have secure boot and have secure update post-quantum secure, then of course that allows you then to, at a later point in time, upgrade the remainder part of your system fully to post-quantum crypto. And then you're fully ready for this transition which is coming.
I think one of the other sort of questions maybe on people's minds, maybe those who are responsible for security at their employer, is there a risk that cyber criminals could sort of start to have a harvesting process where they try to steal encrypted data and sit on it, knowing that at some point in the future quantum computers might be able to help them to decrypt it, and there may be sort of new attacks which solely focus on just gathering data, with that in mind for the future?
Yeah, so that is really the use case, of course, or the argument which lots of people make to migrate as quickly as possible. And you're absolutely right. So that is a real threat. People could harvest lots and lots of data. They cannot decrypt it now. But once they have a sufficiently large quantum computer, they could then read all your data at some point in the future. So that is a very good argument to try and migrate as quickly as possible. And I think, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that is a good argument to already enable AES 256 for all your encryption, for example. So I think, yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And that's why also you would see now in this whole migration phase, because the consumers, the people who use all these products, need to have a lot of trust in post-quantum crypto, right? There are all these new algorithms and you need to trust that they will not get broken. So you see the guidance by governments now is that before we completely move to post-quantum crypto, the guidance is to do this in some sort of a hybrid way, that you both use classical crypto, RSA and ECC in tandem with post-quantum crypto. So use both at the same time. So sign everything twice in a certain way. And then you are prepared against quantum computers. And you can have the trust that even if somebody finds a flaw in one of these new post-quantum crypto standards, which I do not expect, but then you're still secure and protected by RSA and ECC.
So, and I guess another argument to that would be, well, you know, even if quantum computers get that good, it's not like everybody's going to have one installed in their living room or office and have access to a quantum computer. You know, is the risk that high that quantum computing will be so widely available that bad actors could actually just upload this data to a machine somewhere and let it work on it?
Yeah, so that is the big question. So of course, yeah, big three-letter agencies that's what everybody expects, the first who will probably get access or develop large-scale quantum computers. And we don't exactly, of course, know the state of the art there. But if we look at the more public information from all these big tech companies who are building quantum computers, it's very realistic that indeed we don't need one in our living room, but that they would offer services that you can just use these quantum computers through a cloud application. And in that way, harvest the power of quantum algorithms to more quickly solve the problems you want to have solved in machine learning or on big data, but also, of course, if you want, breakthrough crypto applications.
So obviously the role of NXP in all of this as a semiconductor vendor is to provide some sort of hardware to its customers as well, along with software support. But sort of typical devices that are used in this context are trusted platform modules or TPMs with SEs or secure elements and SAs, which are secure authentication chips. When are we going to start to see some of those devices actually come to the market as well?
Yeah, so that was a very interesting journey, of course, because designing a new piece of hardware takes quite a number of years. And so we only knew last summer officially which schemes were selected to be standardized. Before that, we weren't sure. We had a list of the finalists, but that was it. But we should have already started with the hardware designs. Otherwise, we would not be in time to support them in 24 when the standard comes out. So that is exactly what we did. We had to make a gamble, and we needed to design hardware which could, in principle, accelerate any of the finalists. So that is exactly what we did. But of course, we had a slight preference for Kyber and the lithium. So it was a relief, of course, that these were selected for standardization, these lattice-based crypto schemes. So we have already, or we are developing the hardware, and that will be ready when the standard hits next year. So then you can see cryptographic accelerators, just as we have now for RSA and ECC. On our embedded platforms, you will get cryptographic accelerators for post-quantum crypto as well.
Great. Before we go, we've just got time for one more question. One of the things I was interested in is, obviously this is a fascinating area. It's something that not everybody gets to get into as deeply as someone like yourself. Do you have any recommendations for maybe books or other resources around cryptography that people could refer to learn a bit more and understand in a bit more detail how these things work?
That is a very good question, and a question I get a lot. And I think so there's a lot of technical material out there for cryptographers and mathematicians to read. So if you're really into math, you can read. You go to the NIST website and you can click on the specification of these algorithms, and there it is at a high level really explained how these things work. But for most people, I guess that is way too technical. Yeah. And I think there's a great opportunity to have a book or something available where it is explained at a level which is more understandable by most people. But there's not one book at the moment where I can point to, but there are a couple of good blog posts where people explain how Kyber and the lithium work. And if you Google blog post Kyber lithium, you will find these. But I think indeed now is a good time where good explanations of these algorithms and also the underlying mathematics related to learning with errors, for instance, how that exactly works to get an intuition. What are these problems? Why are they hard? I think that are very good questions. And there's lots of material out there, but I wouldn't know of any one particular good book, which is this source, which can help lots of people, unfortunately.
Well, hopefully one will arrive. One book that I referred to actually to understand about the history of cryptography a little bit, and also how DES was sort of discovered. There's a book called The Code Book, The History of Codes and Code Breaking, and that's a book by Simon Singh that I can highly recommend. That's available also on Amazon as an ebook, for example. And not exactly cryptography, but another sort of aspect of the whole discussion is this one, Hacking the Art of Exploitation by John Erickson. Obviously, it's all well and good having your data encrypted, but if you have other holes in your system, such as buffer overruns and things that allow people to hack into your systems, then your data is not going to be very secure either. So those are a couple of books, if anyone's interested, that I find particularly interesting and useful around this topic. Super. Well, thank you ever so much, Joppe, for your information and discussion around this topic. It's been a fantastic hour of discussion with you to learn more. We wish you and the team all the best with the implementation and the standardization process with NIST, and we're really excited to find out when you get some silicon available to have a look at that and to see how it's implemented and how the software around that is also supported to make post-quantum cryptography a reality.
Thanks a lot, Stuart. Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for this very interesting discussion.
You're welcome. Super. Thank you. So there we have it. Another Engineering Insights behind us, and the opportunity to sit back and relax and think a little bit about post-quantum cryptography. So that's unfortunately all the time we have for this episode. So what did we learn? So quantum computing is on the horizon, but the community hasn't just sat on its laurels, it's gathered around and they've started to discuss the risks. And not only that, they've tackled them. NIST and other organisations around the world are working to ensure that data and communication will remain secure. Thanks to organisations like NXP and the teams they work with, we have quantum secure cryptography, and now it's only a matter of time before we see these algorithms deployed in software and hardware. I'm really excited to see the first hardware implementations in action. Thanks to today's expert, Joppe Bos, you've delivered us some outstanding engineering insights. So that wraps it up for today. If you'd like more of the same, we're broadcasting 2 episodes of Engineering Insights every month in 2023. And to keep you abreast of industry trends this year, take a look at News Bites, our monthly 15-minute news roundup. Please like, subscribe to Elektor TV Industry on YouTube and share our videos on whatever platform you use. Additionally, you can now drop by the website at elektormagazine.com/EEI to see the topics for future shows and sign up for regular updates and reminders. Finally, if you'd like to join me as a guest, write me an email, drop me a tweet or reach out to me, Stuart Cording, on LinkedIn. Thanks for joining, stay in touch and don't forget to keep asking your engineering questions.